In the quiet town of Ashwood, nestled between ancient forests and rolling hills, a chilling legend circulated among the locals. A tale that kept children indoors after twilight and haunted the dreams of the old. It wasn't just another ghost story. It was a warning, whispered from generation to generation, about a night when the dead could walk, called forth by a forbidden rite. The corpse possession ritual. It all began in the autumn of 1979. Ashwood was a tightly knit community, every neighbor familiar, every secret closely guarded. But beneath the town's warm facade simmered resentment, envy, and whispers about strange happenings at the edge of Burnt Hollow Road, where the Quinn family's estate rotted in shadow. The Quinns had always been odd, not just eccentric, but clannish, their windows dark and their passages filled with strange, candlelit scents. For years, the townsfolk avoided that place, crossing themselves as they passed, quickening their steps beneath the twisted oaks. One October evening, as orange leaves drifted to the ground and a cold wind gnawed at the bones of the houses, something unimaginable happened. Rachel McAllister, a college student who had returned home for the weekend, vanished on her way back from the library. Her car was found at the edge of the Quinn estate, its doors left wide open, headlights blazing into the woodland gloom. There was no sign of a struggle, only the two sets of footprints, one belonging to Rachel, another larger, boot-pressed, leading into the trees. Sheriff Jacob Monroe led the search, combing the forest for days, but came back empty-handed. Behind closed doors, the townspeople exchanged fearful glances, convinced that the ancient curse of Ashwood had returned. Yet, on the surface, life limped on, every home quietly pushing away the encroaching dread.
3 nights later, Rachel reappeared.
She stumbled into the center of town just after midnight, her clothes caked in mud, her hair tangled with leaves, her eyes, once vivid green, now filled with a glassy, distant darkness that wasn't hers. When she was questioned, she could only mumble strange, guttural words, each syllable twisting the air colder. She was taken to Ashwood's small hospital, where nurses whispered of impossible feats, how Rachel's wounds seemed not to bleed, how her body refused warmth, and how, in the shadowy hours before dawn, she sang in a language no one recognized. It was Dr. Ethan Clark, a rational man of science and the town's only physician, who began to piece the puzzle together. He recalled the forbidden rituals chronicled in the dusty archives, tales from Ashwood's founding days when desperate settlers turned to unspeakable acts to shield themselves from starvation or sickness. There, etched in half-burned pages, was mention of a rite, one that could summon the dead, trapping a living host for some vengeful spirit needing a vessel. They called it the corpse possession ritual. Rachel's parents were desperate. They pleaded for answers, refusing to accept the unfathomable change in their daughter. But as the sun sank each day, strange events grew. Animals fled the town's borders. The air thickened with the stench of grave earth. At night, passers-by glimpsed a haggard figure at their windows. Rachel, or what was inside her, eyes shining with an otherworldly malice, as if something ancient peered through her skin. One night, when hope finally collapsed into terror, Dr. Clark and Sheriff Monroe gathered a small group. Rachel's brother Michael, the town's priest, Father Douglas, and Amy Green, Rachel's closest friend. They met in the storm-battered church, the candles flickering as they read from Ethan's battered journal. Each account detailed a nightmarish scene, chilled limbs twitching to foreign commands, voices seething with vengeance from the recesses of purgatory. Father Douglas, voice trembling, explained, the ritual could be reversed if the host's loved ones entered the realm between life and death, a liminal space accessed only on the darkest night, when a blood moon rose high. The reversal demanded a sacrifice, one life for another, or the spirits would shred both souls, leaving the victim a hollow shell. That very night, the blood moon oozed into the sky, staining the fields crimson. Rachel's possessed form lurked on the edge of the forest, a marionette jerking to the whip of some unseen master. The group steeled themselves and approached, the air frigid with the breath of the lost. Michael, clutching the pendant his sister had given him as children, called out, "Rachel, come back, please!" Rachel's head twisted at an impossible angle, and the thing inside her sneered, its voice an echo chamber of agony and hate. "She is gone. You took what was mine, now I take what is yours." Cold seeped into their bones as reality flickered. The group found themselves standing not on familiar ground but in a realm of shifting shadows, gravestones flickering in and out of existence, hands clawing up from the soft earth for just a taste of the living. The entity inside Rachel, a woman in life, wronged and murdered centuries before, revealed herself in fractured memories playing out around them. Betrayed by the first Quinn patriarch, her spirit became fuel for the ritual, cycling vengeance through each generation. Father Douglas read prayers, his voice growing faint against Rachel's guttural laughter. Amy, tears streaming down her face, tried to reach her friend. "Rachel, I know you're in there. Don't let her win." For a heartbeat, Rachel's real eyes broke through the horror, pleading, desperate. Michael seized the moment, lacing his fingers with his sister's, the pendant burning between them. "Come home, Rachel, come home!" But the entity screamed, howling winds slashing across the graveyard of souls. Dr. Clark, realizing the only hope lay in sacrifice, stepped forward, remembering the phrase from the journal. "Only love's gift can break vengeance's chain." Without hesitation, Michael, his voice breaking, offered himself, an act so selfless that even the spirit faltered. The ground trembled, the air crackled with energy. Rachel was torn between her brother's warmth and the chill of the entity's grasp. "Let me go!" Rachel pleaded from within. The thing inside her shrieked, "You cannot have her! She belongs to the Forgotten!" And then, with a blinding surge of light, Rachel's body collapsed, the entity screeching as she was torn from her vessel and dragged back into the pit below. Michael gasped as spectral hands clawed him, but Amy tore him free. In the aftermath, Rachel lay unmoving. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant caw of a lone crow. Hope wilted. The group huddled in the cold, waiting for a sign. Then, with a shuddering gasp, Rachel opened her eyes, this time vivid, her own again. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced her brother, Amy, and those who risked everything to save her. But not everyone escaped whole. Sheriff Monroe's hair had turned ghostly white. Dr. Clark's hands trembled with every sunrise. The town, though safe for now, remembered the ritual and its cost. At Rachel's side, Michael clutched the pendant, now blackened and cold, a silent reminder that the battle between love and vengeance was never truly over. Ashwood changed after that night. Some pretended nothing had happened, that it was a trick of the mind, something in the autumn air. But others, the ones who heard the moans beneath their floorboards and awoke to shadows that moved without reason, knew the truth. The dead could be summoned by grief and spite, their vengeance hungry and patient. Years passed, and children once again played in the streets. But if you wandered too close to the Quinn estate, you could still sense something watching, waiting. Testament to the darkness that clings to old places and older grudges. Then, on a night much like the first, as the wind howled and the moon crawled across a bruised sky, the warning returned. Whispers beneath the eaves and sighs pressed tight in dreams. Another soul, broken with longing and rage, searched for the forbidden rite, convinced that all one needed was the right spell, a blood-warmed talisman, and the nerve to beckon what should never be disturbed. Elsewhere in the town, the elders gathered, their faces heavy with secrets. Father Douglas, older and more brittle, recounted the events for a new group of listeners. "The dead are not meant to return," he said in a low voice, "for they carry with them the unfinished business of pain too great to be undone. Vengeance is all they know, until mercy breaks the chain." A newcomer, Ivy Richardson, just moved into the old Carmichael house, listened with fascination and skepticism. Yet, when her brother, a soldier lost overseas, began appearing in her dreams, Ivy found herself drawn to the allure of the ritual. Each night, she wandered closer to the edges of the known, yearning to swap loneliness for the comfort of his presence, no matter the cost. In secret, Ivy researched the old rites, poring over yellowed diaries and cryptic letters, her obsession growing. At last, she braved the woods by moonlight, the forbidden words burning on her tongue, and began the ritual at the root of the oldest Quinn oak. As she recited each verse, the air thickened, shadows pressed in, and a grave cold hand brushed her shoulder. She turned, heart pounding, wild with hope, and saw not her brother, but something else. What crawled from the ground was a broken, angry memory, twisted by centuries of hatred, a spirit made monstrous by the pain it had carried for generations. Ivy screamed, tried to run, but roots snagged her ankles, hauling her down into the earth as the vengeful dead claimed her voice as a conduit for their wrath. She became the next vessel, the next Rachel, her own face distorted by ancient suffering. Ashwood awoke the next morning to the news of Ivy's disappearance. Once again, the town braced for a reckoning, for they knew the chain had never truly been broken, only delayed. Now the air in Ashwood grows colder as autumn approaches. Somewhere in the shifting fog, Rachel McAllister walks at the edge of the forest, haunted by what she endured. She spends her days warning those brave enough to listen, begging them to leave the rituals buried. Yet some still disbelieve, driven by yearning so deep it blinds them to the danger. They do not understand that to call to the dead is to invite not closure but chaos, the hunger of souls denied peace. If you find yourself in Ashwood on a blood moon night, remember this tale. Beware whispers carried by wind through the oak trees. The voice could be that of a friend, or a foe wearing a friend's skin. Fear the shudder in your bones at midnight, the cold brush on your cheek, the echo of footsteps in empty halls. For the dead rise hungry for justice, old and unknowable, drawn by the living who refuse to let go. And above all, if you stumble across old diary pages, or find yourself staring too long at the flickering shadow near the Quinn estate, walk away. Leave the past as ash and rumor, for some rituals are not meant to be understood or survived. In Ashwood, vengeance is patient and darkness wears a familiar face. So, as you turn out your lights tonight, think carefully before wishing for another chance to speak with the departed. Sometimes, it is better to let the dead lie quietly, and for the living to cherish memory, rather than invoke what slumbers beneath the rotting earth. And remember, love may be the only light strong enough to guide someone back, but it is also the greatest temptation. A temptation that, if abused, may cause something hungry and ancient to step through, dragging all hope into the shadows with it. Beware Ashwood's legacy. Beware the corpse possession ritual. For when the dead rise with vengeance, no one can promise you will ever find your way back.